You're probably staring at a bunch of espresso machines online, wondering which one actually lives up to the hype and which one will just sit there gathering dust while you keep buying coffee from the CAF down the street. I get that feeling. You don't want to throw a few $100s at a machine that sounds impressive on paper but ends up being a headache in your kitchen. You want something that fits your daily routine, gives you consistent shots, and actually feels worth the investment. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Espresso Mozzafiato Fast R sits in a crowded space of high-end home espresso rigs, but it tries to set itself apart with a few specific tricks: a rotary pump hidden behind sleek black gauges, a heat exchanger boiler that's insulated and holds 1.8 liters of water, and a PID controller that promises tighter temperature control. On top of that, Rocket markets a fast heat-up system and a built-in shot timer, all wrapped in a modern beveled case that looks right at home on a countertop. Let's break down what that actually means when you're pulling a shot on a weekday morning. The rotary pump is quieter than the typical vibratory pump you'll find on many entry-level machines. If you live in an apartment or share a wall with a sleeping partner, that reduced hum can be a real win. It also tends to have a longer lifespan because it doesn't rely on rapid oscillations that wear out over time. That said, rotary pumps are a bit more finicky when it comes to pressure adjustments. You'll need to spend a few minutes dialing in the exact pressure for your grind and dose, which is something a beginner might find intimidating. The heat exchanger design is where the Fast R moniker tries to earn its keep. Because the boiler has a large insulated chamber, you can keep a steady reservoir of water at brewing temperature while the steam wand draws from a separate section for milk frothing. In practice, this means you can pull a double espresso and then immediately switch to steaming milk for a latte without waiting for the boiler to recover. I tested that flow with a standard 18-gram dose, and the machine held temperature within a degree or two between the shot and the steam, thanks to the PID. For anyone who drinks multiple drinks in a row, that consistency cuts down on the temperature dip that can make the second shot taste flat. Now, the PID temperature control is often the selling point for people who care about precision. Rocket's implementation is a simple digital display that lets you set the target brew temperature and shows you the current reading. It's not a full-blown touchscreen, but the feedback is clear enough that you can see if the machine is still climbing or has settled. In my kitchen, the PID kept the brew water hovering around 93°C after the initial heat-up, which is a sweet spot for most espresso blends. If you're the type who tweaks your grind and dose daily, that stability translates to fewer variables to chase. The shot timer built into the front panel is another practical touch. It lights up as soon as you start the pump and gives you a visual cue for the 25 to 30-second window most baristas aim for. It's not a substitute for a separate timer if you're tracking every millisecond, but it's handy for the casual home brewer who just wants a quick visual reference without pulling out their phone. All those features sound great on paper, but there are some trade-offs you need to consider. First, the machine's footprint is fairly substantial. The beveled case looks impressive, but you'll need at least a 12-inch wide countertop with enough clearance for the steam wand to swing. If your kitchen is tight, you might end up juggling the machine around your other appliances. Second, while the rotary pump is quiet, it's also a bit heavier on the price tag compared to the vibratory alternatives. That means the Mozzafiato Fast R sits in the upper mid-range for home setups, and if you're only planning to make a single espresso a day, the extra cost may not be justified. Who should seriously consider this machine? If you're a home barista who already knows the basics: grind size, dose, tamp pressure, and you want a tool that lets you refine those variables with stable temperature and minimal waiting between shots, the Mozzafiato Fast R fits nicely. It also appeals to small batch coffee enthusiasts who like to experiment with different beans and need a reliable temperature platform to compare flavor notes. The fast heat-up and the ability to hold a full 1.8 L of water are useful if you entertain guests regularly or make multiple milk-based drinks in a row. On the flip side, if you're just dipping your toe into espresso and prefer a more plug-and-play experience, you might be better off with a semi-automatic machine that has a smaller boiler and a more straightforward pressure control. The learning curve around pressure tweaking with the